Robert De Niro's career spans over 50 years, marked by soaring highs and recent stumbles. Widely revered as one of the greatest screen actors of his generation, De Niro built an early legacy through intense, transformative performances. In recent years, however, he's also headlined lukewarm comedies and even a major box office flop. This script takes a critical look at De Niro's evolution, from his iconic 1970s, 1990s roles, Taxi Driver, Raging Bull, Goodfellas, to his newer projects like The Irishman, Netflix's 0 Day, and the 2025 misfire, The Alto Knights. We'll examine historical context, key performances, awards, box office trends, and critical reception along the way. The question at the end, has De Niro's flurry of mediocre projects in later years diluted his legacy, or is it secure regardless of recent misfires? Robert De Niro emerged in the 1970s as a force in American cinema. His breakthrough came with director Martin Scorsese's Mean Streets, 1973, but it was his role as young Vito Corleone in The Godfather Part II, 1974, that won De Niro his first Academy Award, Best Supporting Actor. From there, he famously inhabited the psyche of Travis Bickle in Taxi Driver, 1976, a performance that earned an Oscar nomination and gave cinema the immortal line, "You talkin' to me?" His commitment to realism was evident even then. Preparing for Taxi Driver, De Niro reportedly worked long shifts as an actual cab driver in New York to get into character, a testament to the method approach he would become known for. He closed out the decade with The Deer Hunter, 1978, another Best Picture winner that solidified him as one of Hollywood's most intense young actors. By the end of the 70s, De Niro had established a reputation for disappearing into roles and bringing a raw, authentic edge to the screen. The 1980s saw De Niro push his dedication to new heights. In Raging Bull, 1980, he portrayed boxer Jake LaMotta with ferocious intensity, even gaining about 60 pounds to play the aging, out-of-shape LaMotta in later scenes. That transformational performance earned De Niro an Academy Award for Best Actor. Raging Bull is now widely considered one of his all-time best roles, and it exemplified the lengths he would go for a part. Throughout the 80s, he continued to challenge himself. In Scorsese's The King of Comedy, 1983, De Niro took a darkly comic turn as a delusional stand-up comedian, a film that flopped commercially but later gained cult acclaim for its prescient satire. He also tackled Sergio Leone's epic Once Upon a Time in America, 1984, expanding his range in an ambitious historical crime saga. Even as he tried diverse projects, he maintained critical respect. By 1987, De Niro had also memorably played Al Capone in The Untouchables, reminding audiences that his mere presence could elevate a film. In 1988's Midnight Run, he revealed a flair for comedy in an action comedy context, hinting at a lighter side he would explore more in the next decade. At this stage, De Niro was at the peak of his craft, an Oscar-winning actor equally at home in searing dramas and offbeat projects. De Niro's hot streak continued through the 1990s with a string of iconic roles. He reunited with Scorsese for the mob classic Goodfellas, 1990, delivering a restrained yet powerful performance as mobster Jimmy Conway. Goodfellas is often ranked among the greatest gangster films ever made. It holds a 96% fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes. That same year, De Niro earned another Oscar nomination for Awakenings, 1990, playing a catatonic patient brought to life, a testament to his versatility beyond crime dramas. In 1991, he transformed into a terrifying villain in Cape Fear, garnering yet another Oscar nod for portraying the vengeful ex-con Max Cady. De Niro's commitment, including heavily muscling up and covering himself in improvised tattoos, made Cady a truly menacing figure, and Cape Fear became a box office hit. The mid-90s saw De Niro in two sprawling crime sagas, Michael Mann's Heat, 1995, which for the first time put De Niro and Al Pacino face-to-face in a now-famous diner confrontation, and Scorsese's Casino, 1995, where De Niro's cool restraint as a Vegas mob operative anchored the film. While Casino wasn't as universally acclaimed as Goodfellas, it further cemented his image as the quintessential mob movie lead. Outside the crime genre, De Niro dabbled in satire with Wag the Dog, 1997, and took a small comedic role in Quentin Tarantino's Jackie Brown, 1997, showing he wasn't above ensemble work or self-parody. By the late 90s, he even began overtly spoofing his tough guy image, notably in Analyze This, 1999, a gangster comedy where he mined laughs from mobster cliches. This era was arguably De Niro's career zenith. He was consistently working with top directors, scoring major awards nominations, and his name was synonymous with quality. In total, by the end of the 1990s, De Niro had earned 7 Academy Award nominations and 2 wins for acting, joining a rarefied group of performers with such a record. Around the turn of the millennium, De Niro's career took a noticeable turn toward comedy and mainstream crowd pleasers. In 2000, he scored a massive hit with Meet the Parents, playing the overprotective would-be father-in-law opposite Ben Stiller. The film's success, $330 million worldwide gross, showed that De Niro's deadpan intensity could translate to broad comedy. He followed up with Meet the Fockers, 2004, which was even bigger, grossing over $522 million worldwide, the highest box office of his career. These Focker films made De Niro a bankable comedy star, but critically they were more middling. As he leaned into lighter fare, there was a sense that the once edgy method actor was now happy to poke fun at his own tough image for a paycheck. During the 2000s, De Niro alternated between such comedies and various genre experiments. He voiced a shark mob boss in the animated Shark Tale, 2004, starred in the spy thriller Ronin, 1998, and the heist flick The Score, 2001, and even directed The Good Shepherd, 2006, a serious CIA drama, reminding that his interests still lay beyond comedy. But the dominant public image became Comedy De Niro. Films like Analyze That, 2002, Showtime, 2002, a buddy cop spoof with Eddie Murphy, and Meet the Fockers received lukewarm reviews, suggesting that critics were less impressed with this phase of his career. De Niro himself has occasionally downplayed the difficulty of comedic acting. In one interview, he quipped that in a drama, you spend all day beating a guy to death with a hammer, or take a bite out of somebody's face, whereas with a comedy, you yell at Billy Crystal for an hour and you go home. That tongue-in-cheek remark hints that he viewed some of these later comedy roles as light work compared to the grueling intensity of his earlier films. By the end of the 2000s, the critical consensus was that De Niro's choice of projects had become hit or miss. The once unimpeachable actor was now just as likely to appear in a formulaic farce or forgettable thriller as in an awards-caliber drama. In the 2010s, De Niro began balancing those commercial comedies with a few prestige projects, leading to a partial career resurgence. A notable turning point was Silver Linings Playbook, 2012, directed by David O. Russell, where De Niro gave a heartfelt supporting performance as Bradley Cooper's obsessive Philadelphia Eagles fan father. That role earned De Niro an Academy Award nomination, his first acting Oscar nod in over 20 years. The last had been Cape Fear in 1991. It signaled to Hollywood that De Niro could still deliver the goods when given strong material. He continued to appear in broad comedies, Las Vegas, Dirty Grandpa, The Intern, but now mixed in higher quality dramas. In Joy, 2015, he reteamed with Russell, and in Joker, 2019, he made a clever cameo as a talk show host, essentially a nod to his king of comedy character decades earlier. The capstone of this renewed critical respect was The Irishman, 2019. Reuniting with Martin Scorsese yet again, De Niro starred as mob hitman Frank Sheeran in this sweeping epic about aging, loyalty, and regret. The Irishman was a major project, a $160 million production using digital de-aging, so De Niro, alongside co-stars Al Pacino and Joe Pesci, could portray their characters across several decades. Released on Netflix with a limited theatrical run, The Irishman garnered rave reviews, a 95% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, for its poignant, elegiac take on the gangster genre. Critics noted De Niro's nuanced, restrained performance as one of his best in years, anchoring the film's meditations on mortality. The film earned 10 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture. De Niro himself, as a producer, shared in that nomination. And while he surprisingly did not receive an individual acting nomination, many felt he deserved one. By the end of the 2010s, thanks largely to Silver Linings Playbook and The Irishman, De Niro had firmly reminded audiences and critics of his formidable talent. It seemed that when working with top-tier filmmakers on strong material, he could still deliver performances worthy of his legend. Entering the 2020s, De Niro has continued to alternate between prestige projects and paycheck roles, with mixed results. On the prestige side, he again collaborated with Scorsese in Killers of the Flower Moon 2023, playing a charismatic yet sinister cattle baron in a true crime epic. The film earned a 95% Rotten Tomatoes score, and De Niro, at age 80, received another Oscar nomination, his 8th acting nod for the role. It was proof that De Niro could still contribute to acclaimed cinema and hold his own alongside younger stars like Leonardo DiCaprio. In a surprising move, De Niro also made his first venture into series television with the Netflix limited series 0 Day, 2025. He starred as a former U.S. president pulled out of retirement to handle a cyber-terror crisis, a role that gave him a chance to headline a contemporary political thriller over 6 episodes. Reactions to 0 Day were divided. Some critics found it over the top. The series sits at only 53% on the Rotten Tomatoes tomatometer, indicating mixed reviews. The critics' consensus noted that 0 Day has plenty of gravitas thanks to its all-star cast led by Robert De Niro, but its high-concept series plotting is a little too goofy for it to take itself so seriously. On the other hand, a number of reviewers enjoyed it as pulpy fun. The Guardian praised it as an astonishing amount of fun, remarking that De Niro was on fine form in his first major TV role. In that review, critic Lucy Mangan observed that De Niro had let contempt, either for the roles or for the profession, seep into a few of his later film performances. But in 0 Day, she found him fully committed to the part. In short, while 0 Day wasn't universally lauded, it showed that De Niro could still bring charisma to a new medium when he took it seriously. Unfortunately, not all of De Niro's recent projects have been well chosen. In early 2025, he headlined The Alto Knights, a 1950s set mob drama directed by Barry Levinson. On paper, The Alto Knights seemed promising. It paired De Niro with a legendary director and even had him playing dual roles, real-life crime bosses Frank Costello and Vito Genovese, from a script by Goodfellas writer Nicholas Pileggi. However, the film was a disaster both commercially and critically. It opened to only $3.1 million domestically, a disastrous result given its hefty $45 to $50 million budget. Warner Brothers released the film on over 2,800 screens, yet it debuted at just number 6 at the box office, marking one of the worst flops of 2025. As one box office analyst noted bluntly, De Niro is no longer an automatic butts-in-seats movie star whose name alone can draw audiences. If the movie itself doesn't generate interest, his presence won't save it, and The Alto Knights proved that. Critics panned the film. It sits at only 39% on Rotten Tomatoes. The Independent's review gave it just 2 stars, saying the much-hyped scene of De Niro versus De Niro slips by without much incident, and that as good as he is, De Niro can't distinguish these two men in a way that justifies the stunt of casting himself twice. Film's critic was even harsher, calling The Alto Knights a mob movie that makes mob life look absolutely boring. Such scathing critiques underscore how far The Alto Knights fell from the standard of classics like Goodfellas. For De Niro, it was a rare outright bomb in the gangster genre that he once dominated, a film many reviewers suggested was not worthy of his talent or legacy. It's also worth noting that beyond these high-profile projects, De Niro has continued doing smaller comedies that often fly under the radar or get poor reviews. Dirty Grandpa, 2016, for instance, was lambasted by critics. It holds a mere 10% on Rotten Tomatoes. For its crass humor, and The War with Grandpa, 2020, a family comedy, fared only slightly better around 29%. These films kept his name in marquees, but did little to impress critics. Such choices, combined with misfires like the Alto Knights, have led some observers to question if De Niro has been squandering the goodwill earned from his classic roles. As Variety once commented, the actor's late career filmography can seem puzzling, oscillating between prestige drama and lowbrow farce, leaving fans unsure which De Niro will show up next. After surveying Robert De Niro's evolving career, we return to the central question. Has his legacy been diluted by the uneven roles of his later years, or is it ultimately secure despite the misfires? It's a testament to De Niro's earlier greatness that even a dozen forgettable films cannot erase the impact of his masterpieces. The cultural imprint of characters like Travis Bickle, Jake LaMotta, Jimmy Conway, and Vito Corleone's younger self is indelible. Those performances earned De Niro 2 Oscars and a reputation for almost unrivaled intensity and authenticity. Even in the 2010s and 2020s, when given material equal to his talents, Silver Linings Playbook, The Irishman, Killers of the Flower Moon, he reminded us that the fire is still there. At 80 years old, he can still command the screen and garner awards attention, proving the depth of his ability has not truly diminished, only the consistency of his project choices has. That said, there's no denying that the frequency of subpar films has increased in his later career. To younger audiences who maybe first encountered De Niro in a goofy comedy or a poorly reviewed thriller, the legend might not shine as brightly. When a once-revered actor appears in enough flops, some tarnish is inevitable. The disappointing box office of the Alto Knights and the existence of films like Dirty Grandpa show that even an icon can lose their box office luster and critical cachet in the present day. Yet, Hollywood history is full of great actors who made dubious choices in their twilight years. Marlon Brando, for instance, infamously did The Island of Dr. Moreau late in his career without erasing their earlier achievements. In De Niro's case, his body of work from the 1970s through 1990s is so acclaimed that it has effectively entered the pantheon of cinema. That legacy, bolstered by occasional late-career triumphs, is likely strong enough to endure. In conclusion, while Robert De Niro's recent filmography may have added a few footnotes of mediocrity to an otherwise stellar career, his status as a living legend remains largely intact. The misfires may have scratched the paint, but the foundation of his legacy, built on decades of brilliant performances, is rock solid. Decades from now, film-savvy audiences will still be watching Taxi Driver and Goodfellas with reverence, and The Irishman will stand as proof that even in his later years, De Niro could still deliver magic. In the end, the iconic roles and the awards, the classic lines and characters, far outweigh the forgettable detours. Robert De Niro's legacy, it seems, is secure as one of the all-time greats of cinema, even if we occasionally wince at the projects he takes on the way to padding that legacy. The man who once embodied the pinnacle of method acting intensity has earned his place in film history, and not even the Alto Knights can take that away from him.